It's very appropriate that I followed Ruben onto the stage some 25 years ago when I came into the leather industry. Ruben was kind enough to show me around a tannery. He didn't put me off, I'm not quite sure why, but here I am today in what's rapidly turning into the Scouse session.
No biting.
Wish somebody had given me 10 weeks. So, let's assume everyone in the room knows the joke about the industry being the second oldest profession in the world, and move quickly on. But the point I'm trying to make is that a millennia ago, our earliest ancestors discovered they could use animal skins to create more comfortable seating, warmer bedding, and clothes and shoes that gave them decent protection. What I want to do today is give a little bit of a snapshot of the industry and talk about where we fit into it. We were kindly allowed to talk about one of our major projects, which is the Tannery of the Year project. So this is a big industry. In numbers, the leather industry produces billions of square feet of leather a year. Some figures that we can give that have been given to us recently from Cotanks is that the leather sector in the EU comprises around 3,000 SMEs, employing over 50,000 workers, generating a yearly turnover of approximately 8 billion euros. In China alone, there's over 3,000 mechanised tanneries. If we take the biggest 750, they make over 7.5 billion square feet per annum, and they have a turnover in excess of 25 billion US dollars. They're figures that have just come from the China Leather Association. And we've been fortunate enough in the last 5 years to visit some of the biggest tanneries in China, and they're all doubling their capacity. We've seen the drums that are being delivered to enable them to do that. And several of them will be producing in the region of 120 million square foot per year each. In the Americas, 68.6 million hides in the US and Brazil alone exported to the rest of the world. Around 60% of the world's production of leather is estimated to go into footwear. The global production of footwear passed 20 billion pairs in 2010. Taking all this together, figures that we calculated suggests that the leather industry is bigger than the industries of meat, tea, coffee, rice and sugar added together. So our industry is a big global industry, and it does it by taking a waste product and adding immense value. So why do people love leather? If we go back to those earliest ancestors, not everything they liked is part of our lives today. For example, living a nomadic life, following antelope herds around the steppes of Central Asia, would be seen as a slightly eccentric way to live in 2013. However, to use and to love leather, on the other hand, is not. Leather appeals to all of the senses, except maybe taste. Rolls-Royce has spoken about the contribution of the smell of its leather upholstery and how that appeals to its customers. And often people like to hear that very specific sound of sitting down on a leather sofa. It looks fantastic. Natural looks becoming particularly relevant with designers, including tears and blemishes, because they look so authentic. And leather is irresistible to touch. We all know from visiting tanneries and tanner stands at exhibitions, it's impossible not to want to touch leather. Bill Amberg has said he thinks the association with flesh is one of the things that makes leather sexy. And he also believes leather has associations with freedom and power. But of course we know that not everybody loves leather. And whilst I have no idea if Bill would find this advertisement sexy, it's certainly very powerful. I hope that's woken one or two of you up. A minute or so ago, I said that leather appeals to all the senses, except maybe taste. Well, some of leather's fiercest critics certainly aim to appeal to our senses, but normally use campaigns in the worst possible taste. To quote a recent advertisement from the campaign group PETA, every year the global leather industry slaughters more than 1 billion animals. Do we really? Powerful nonsense that's reported in the press. At the most recent London Fashion Week in February this year, PETA came up with the idea of showing attendees a computer-generated film called Runway Reversal. Google it, it's absolutely horrific. It showed animals as catwalk models wearing human body parts. As part of its blurb for the film, it said, in the UK, most animals whose skin is turned into leather endure all the horrors of factory farming, including extreme crowding and confinement, deprivation, castration, branding, tail docking, and dehorning, all without being given painkillers. It didn't offer any justification for the most animals claim, but it did persuade one of the major global advertising agencies, Ogilvy and Mather, to fund the campaign and to add its name to the project. Say what you like about them, they're very good at advertising, as its campaigns with people like Pamela Anderson show. Where are other threats coming from? Sports brand Puma must have consumed millions of hides since it was founded in 1924. But in 2012, quite a clear anti-leather message started to come out of the company. We aren't altogether sure why. World Leather, the International Council of Tanners, and a few others took Puma to task over some of the things it said, mostly to do with claims it made about the environmental cost of its classic Puma suede shoe, compared to a new shoe which it launched in February 2013, hoping to appeal to environmentally conscious consumers. We challenged its figures, and even after months of dialogue, could not understand exactly how it had reached its figures. Within our organisation, we have somewhere in the region of 300 years of experience of the leather and footwear industry. We couldn't work out how they got to these figures. They couldn't work out how they got to the figures. If they could, they would have told us. But they couldn't. It was a London-based consultancy company. They followed a formula. The formula had spat out a number, and it didn't take any consideration of the leather industry supply chain. That's fair enough, because we all know that the leather industry has a very complex supply chain. But what's not fair enough is to use wrong figures to generate global press, knocking the industry that we all care so dearly about. If we move on, there's Greenpeace. We all know Greenpeace has done the most fantastic work around the world for decades. But some of its campaigns are baffling. In 2009, they reported on the apparent links between the leather industry and the illegal deforestation in the Amazon. As far as we can tell, The thought process for parts of that report seemed to be deforestation has occurred in some Amazon regions. Cows are now being raised on some of the land. Some of the cows' hides are being made into leather. Therefore, if you make or use leather anywhere in the world, you're complicit in deforestation. It's a slight exaggeration, but not as much of an exaggeration as the tremendous leap of logic would suggest. And Greenpeace likes to name and shame, and that's how people like Greenpeace get the publicity. And on the face of this criticism, our industry's natural response, traditionally, has been nothing. Not a picture of white rabbits playing in the snow. There's nothing there. But there started to become better responses. At the International Leather Forum in Paris in 2007, which many people believe was a seminal event, the industry's usual response was disgust. It sat tight and just waited for it to blow over. It was linked to the belief that the qualities of leather, its beauty, its naturalness, breathability, durability, and sensuality, can sell themselves. But this is no longer true, if it ever was. There is fierce competition to attract buyers to alternative textiles in every application market, with manufacturers, some of them very powerful, presenting advanced plastics and other petroleum-based products as viable alternatives to leather. Mark Fallachier of CTC and Elton Hurlo, who's here today, worked very hard to bring us the International Leather Forum back in Paris, because they had a sense that the time had come to fight back a little bit, push back a little bit, somebody said before. They wanted to inspire some new thinking and to provoke the industry into some form of action. By this time, the work of the multi-stakeholder body, the Leather Working Group, had already begun, and hundreds of tanneries around the world have since taken part in those audits, giving their customers assurances and gaining efficiency benefits themselves. We came away from Paris thinking that the call to action was correct, but human nature being what it was, we felt sure there wasn't much that we could do as a small family-owned publishing company with very little financial clout to take on these pressure groups. And then we thought again. And it seemed clear to us that part of the industry's problem was that it is, or has been, very poor at blowing its own trumpet. Tanners generally are geniuses at making leather, but they've been slightly less good until recently at promoting and celebrating their good work and sharing their success stories. We realised we were in a good position to provide a platform to tell those stories, and that if we could convince good tanners to open their doors to us, we could help them answer the Paris Challenge and make a difference. So our principal response to the challenge presented to the industry as a whole was the programme Tannery of the Year. The following March, I was invited to the International Council of Tanners meeting in Hong Kong, where I pitched to them the idea of Tannery of the Year and asked for their support. They very generously gave me their support and said that they would help in any way they could. But the major problem was, no tanner in the world would ever let us through their doors, so the concepts and the programme would never exist. Well, how wrong were they? 49 tanneries in 20 countries have opened their doors to us since. all over the world. China, Japan, Pakistan, Indonesia, Taiwan, India, Vietnam, Turkey. Everybody said you'll never get an Italian. Italy, Germany, Holland, the UK, although that might be just Scotland shortly, South Africa, Namibia, Ethiopia twice, the USA, Mexico, the Dominican Republic, Brazil, and Argentina. To begin with, we maybe had to twist the odd arm. Now we regularly receive emails, letters, faxes from some of the world's leading tanneries asking how they take part, how can they participate, what's the process. It's changed. Tanners are happy to let us in, and they're happy to tell their stories. We didn't want to start a program, a competition, whatever you want to call it, about how good the leather was. That would be impossible. Nobody could possibly ever judge that. So the stories we're striving to tell have all got corporate social responsibility at their core. It turned out that a huge percentage of tanneries, and absolutely all of the leaders of our industry, care about their environment. And at the same time, they actually look after their workforce. They hold their heads up in society and take seriously their responsibilities for sharing resources with the communities on who they rely. They meet their obligations, they pay their way, they're good corporate citizens. They have these commitments. And the question that our team asks when it visits finalist tanneries centre on these important issues. And it's amazing what comes back, incredible stories that I promise you has left tanners, big, hairy-arsed ones, in tears, telling us what they have done, often without ever having told anybody about it before. There's lots and lots of examples, but I'll just share two. One tannery, Hellerleder in Germany, unfortunately lost a colleague to leukemia a few years ago. Several of the employees had tried to see if they could be a match to him, to see if they could save his life. And unfortunately they failed, there wasn't a match. But all of their employees now have volunteered to become bone marrow donors. And we all know that's a painful and intrusive process. And within a year, bone marrow donated by people at Hellerleder had been matched to two sufferers, one in the US and one here in the UK. That tannery and their workers have saved the lives of two individuals who they know nothing about. It's a remarkable story. A second example happened in Brazil, in a shanty town, a favela near a tannery, which is called Coming. Many of those living in the favela were single mothers who couldn't travel to work, they couldn't work, they had no childcare. So the tannery, using only its own resources, its own profits, built a kindergarten right in the middle of the favela. And suddenly the children had somewhere to go to school, and the mothers could go out and work. But not only did they build the kindergarten and supply the teachers, they also started to supply dentists and doctors. And suddenly the favela had changed from being the most disgusting place we would ever wish to be, to a thriving community with fit and healthy children, being educated, and mothers going out to work. As well as bringing these stories to the attention of the wider world, we believed it's helped the tanneries too. Through the Tannery of the Year programme, they've been able to see themselves as others see us, to quote Robert Burns. So it's not formal, it's not work numbers based in the way that the LWG protocol is, but this is working as a process and is helping to drive standards in the industry up. In the programme we have 5 regions: Africa, the Americas, Asia excluding China, China itself because it's so vast, and Europe. Around 50 tanneries are normally nominated per awards programme, 10 per region. And the 2 tanneries with the most nominations who accept the nomination, because we are grown up enough to know that some tanneries still don't want to open their doors to us. So not everybody accepts the nomination, but the 2 with the most nominations receive a visit from Richard Daniels, who's here today, and Stephen Tierney, World Leather's editor. They talk to them about their businesses, and they talk to them about these amazing stories. And then the process is quite simple. The 2 tanneries from each region come to either Hong Kong or Shanghai, where the awards judging and dinner is held. And they present a PowerPoint presentation similar to today to a panel of judges from both inside and outside of the industry. We don't want a panel of judges from the industry. We want to be judged by outside the industry as well as inside the industry. They've included the last 3 IUL TCS presidents. Paul Pearson in his role as Secretary of the International Council of Tanners. And from outside the industry, senior executives from UNIDO, Credit Suisse, British Airways, and RAP, which stands for Worldwide Responsible Apparel Production. The judges select the regional winners, and then they select from the regional winners the global winner. We've had 3 to date: the Ethiopia Tannery Share Company, which we now know better as being part of the Pittars Group. In 2010, our first programme, Hellaleder from Germany in 2011, and most recently last month, Prime Asia, their Chinese plant in 2013. And if you ask those guys and the other regional winners and highly commended tanneries that have come runners-up, for want of a better phrase, they will tell you that this competition is making a difference to the way leather and the people who make it are being perceived around the world. By governments, including heads of government, by television companies, newspapers, people on the street, and everyone in between. All of these people are consumers of leather. All of these people are being bombarded by the rubbish coming out of campaign groups. We are talking to them in a very, very positive way about how the world's best tanneries are treating their people and treating their communities. And we are proud to say that we have generated a vast amount of PR for the leather industry on a global basis. There are challenges ahead. I mentioned earlier that the supply chain is unusual. One of the main reasons is that while the raw material comes from a meat industry dominated by huge players such as JBS and Tyson, and many of the major user organisations are also big, wealthy companies, such as PPR Group and LVMH and luxury goods, and Poo Chain and Brown Shoe and footwear, tanners, by comparison, are relatively tiny. Most of them are small, at best, medium-sized companies. And then when they source their chemicals, once again, usually a major global player coming to knock on their door. Everywhere the tanner turns, they run the risk of being pushed around by people with much bigger muscles than they have. It's not clear whether this can continue. When we predict consolidation among tanners and acquisitions of tanneries by some of the big user companies that have decided on vertical integration of as much of their own supply as possible. We know, and it's been reported on, Hermes and LVMH have each acquired several tanneries in recent years, including exotic leather producers, because they want to be sure they can meet their customer demand for their bags and accessories. Because this recession that we're having is not going on all over the world, as the profits of LV, MH and Hermes will show if you look into their increasing profits every quarter. In the face of this, there's much more talk of a more united voice from the global leather industry. The Global Leather Coordinating Committee, which brings together the sector's 3 international organisations, the International Council of Tanners, the Schlata and IULTCS, have met several times now. Most recently during the APLF exhibition in Hong Kong to discuss collaborative projects in the leather industry. This is good because the challenge isn't going away. And the opportunity, as that group said, is for communication. The industry is lousy at communication. So the biggest opportunity we have is to communicate who we are and what we do. And it's good because the challenge isn't going away. We learned recently that producers of the type of plastic directly in competition with leather, that it even steals and misuses leather's name, is now producing some 50 billion square meters of the stuff every year. And finally, no matter how much plastic they make, our industry will continue to make better. The reason we can be confident of this is that people are going to keep on eating meat. The UN's Food and Agricultural Organization has set the figure for 2012 for all types of meat production will have passed 300 million tonnes. If any country has come up with a business case for putting all of the hides and skills into landfill instead of into the leather value chain, I haven't heard about it. Also, I do not believe that the collagen and associated industries will be able to afford to take all of the current raw material out of our supply chain. So tanners will keep making leather, and that's great news. We can all buy boots, shoes, sofas, bags, car interiors made from the synthetic stuff. But most of us in this room, and our challenge is to persuade the rest of the world, would regard that as distinctly second best. Because we can say with confidence that synthetic substitutes are really no substitute for leather at all. However, we need to stop imagining that everyone shares that opinion, or that there is no need to present the arguments for leather. We do need to present them, and the more ways we find to put the message across, the better. So I hope that this presentation has helped give some extra insight into the Tannery of the Year as one of the vehicles for spreading good news about our industry. Thank you very much.